Sometimes you really have to feel bad for a Pokemon. You have to feel like Game Freak just put them out in the world to wither and die, like Aromatisse or Spidops. And honestly, that's how I felt about Zamazenta for a while too. Until recently, in Sword and Shield, this thing was the redheaded stepchild. And believe me, I know how that feels. But now it's all changed. Zamazenta is making waves, and it's using its big old shield in its own defense, and it's doing some good stuff now, and I couldn't be more proud of it. Look at that little pup. He's just a nice little guy. He just wants to protect. Zacian was the big boy that was always in front for years now. But it's all flipped on its head. Zacian is no more. Zamazenta's time has come. And we're going to see Wolfie's take on the subject.
Zamazenta was one of the saddest Pokemon ever created.
See, this just breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart. Also, can I say, the editors for Wolfie's videos, absolutely fantastic. Iconoclast does an amazing job. Fantastic job. And the thumbnail artist too. I think Wolfie has 2 thumbnail artists. They do an amazing job too. Like, Wolfie's videos always look incredible.
It lived its entire life in the shadow of its stronger, better big brother. But then, after 3 years of mediocrity, it got nerfed, losing several of its best tools. And then it won a major tournament and established itself as one of the top threats in Scarlet and Violet.
All because of one move. Only because of one little update they made to that little boy's moveset, and they took him from nobody to somebody. He was 0 to hero. Move over, Palafin. There's a new All Might in town.
How did this happen? Well, to understand, we have to go back to prehistoric times.
Oh, 2019.
When Sword and Shield released. A new game release is exciting. There's a new region to explore, new characters to meet, and most importantly, new things to complain about.
Thank you, IGN, for the footage. Oh, new things to complain about with Sword and Shield coming out. God, if you weren't around on the Pokemon side of the internet when Sword and Shield came out, oh man, you missed a really fun, normal time with regular, normal people that had regular, normal things to say in the community. When they said, oh, all the Pokemon are going to be in the game, everyone was really normal about it and had regular, nice things to say.
For competitive players, a new game means a whole new influx of Pokemon, many of which are good, some of which are Obstagoon. And few of these additions.
Wait, is Obstagoon truly that bad? I mean, he looks kind of cool. He's got like Parting Shot. Everybody likes Parting Shot. You know, also has Parting Shot. Incineroar has Parting Shot.
Are more important than the Pokemon on the covers of the games. In this case, that's Zacian and Zamazenta. There was gonna be a game with Eternatus on the cover, but it didn't fit. The reason these Pokemon matter so much.
It didn't fit. Wait, I thought he was actually being serious. I mean, that thing, that is a big fella. You ever seen a Turtomax done this? That is a big fella.
Much is because of what is usually the final rule set of competitive play each generation.
Ooh, I see a Palkia being used. That's fun. You know, you never see Palkia being used, which is really sad because it was always my favorite one of the God's Trio or Quadro. Quadfecta? Square? What do you call 4 things?
Competitive play traditionally follows a 3-year
there he is. There's Incineroar.
Cycle, where the first year of each generation allows only the 400 or so Pokemon catchable in the base games. The second year expands that and allows all Pokemon that you can transfer in. And the final year allows powerful, restricted Pokemon.
I actually kind of like that there is an upward tick in the amount of power that you introduce into the game. I think it's really fun and it changes up the format. I'm not really sure how the competitive players feel about it per se, but I think it's interesting to watch it develop anyway.
Restricted Pokemon are basically like the big dog legendary Pokemon, including any legendary on the cover of a game. And you're only allowed to use 1 or 2 of them on your team.
The amount of power creep that happened in Generation 8 was absolutely ridiculous. Can we just say that Zacian by itself just shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't have happened.
And there aren't that many of them.
And then Calyrex as well. Shadow Rider and Glistria, Ice Rider.
Because these Pokemon are, well, legendary, the pool of restricted Pokemon is relatively small. The pool
Kyogre's having a great time on there.
of good restricted Pokemon within this already short list is extremely shallow.
Oh, well, you're telling me that a regular 50% Zygarde isn't good?
In 2016, the year I won the World Championships, there were basically 4 good restricted Pokemon. And since each team used 2 restricteds, there wasn't that much variety. So
Hey, it is cool that someone used a Kyurem, though. I think that's respectable.
The opportunity to add more diversity in with a new game's release is a surprisingly big deal. And
Urshifu. Oh, I forgot about Urshifu in Generation 8 as well. God, Generation 8 was ridiculous.
These games delivered in spades, with the addition of Zacian,
and swords.
Arguably the strongest restricted Pokemon in Sword and Shield. And that's saying something because these games also added Calyrex. What made Zacian so broken was basically everything. It has some of the best stats out of any Pokemon.
148 speeds, 170 attack. You get an attack buff every time that you enter the arena. Before the nerf, this was disgusterous. 115 under defenses, because even though it's the sword creature that focuses entirely on its attack, it had to have 115. It has more defense than my grandma, which, to be fair, she doesn't really have much defense. I don't know why I use that as an example. I'm sorry.
Most notably, its speed, which is higher than every single restricted Pokemon that was released before Gen 8.
It's well over Mewtwo. Like, it's not even close. It's not like it's 135. It's not even remotely close.
Plus the ones in Gen 9, it's ridiculously good bulk, and its sky-high attack stat. It also has arguably the single best typing in the game as a fairy and steel-type Pokemon. When I ranked every single type combination in the game, this is the one that I had at number 1.
This makes me happy because it means that Mawile is very good, and Mawile is my favorite Mega Evolution of all time. God, I love that boy.
And then there's the ability. Zacian's stats are already good, but its ability Intrepid Sword gives it an attack boost every single time it switches in. This is functionally a 50% increase to Zacian's attack stat, which was already higher than every other legal restricted Pokemon.
And what's wrong with having over 200 functional attack? I mean, is it really that bad when you consider, other high attack Pokemon have like Garchomp has like 130, so that's pretty. Conkeldurr, almost entirely known for its attack, is 140, so that's also like pretty close to over 200, so it's pretty close.
And just barely below Pokemon like Primal Groudon and Mega Rayquaza. In other words, Zacian was basically 50% stronger than Primal Groudon and Mega Rayquaza. And this attack boost would activate whenever Zacian switched in, making it extremely difficult to get rid of since switching Zacian out would remove all attack drops, letting it re-enter play later with its boosted attack stat once more.
And why not have it shiny after all? You've earned it.
If this weren't bad enough, we haven't even talked about the most broken aspect of Zacian yet.
The sword. It's very sharp.
Its signature move. Behemoth Blade is a
I told you.
100% accurate, 100 base power move with no drawback.
And does double damage to Pokemon that are Dynamax, which was the main shebang of the generation. You Dynamax something, it becomes functionally invincible for at least a few turns, and you can do some good damage. Nope. Behemoth Blade just cuts right through it. Play the laugh track. I don't think do I have a laugh track on my no, that's not the one. No. Yeah, there. Thank you. Where are you going? Thank you so much.
Instead, this move does double damage to Dynamax Pokemon. Dynamax was the central mechanic of Sword and Shield, and the competitive scene revolved around it. It not only powered up your Pokemon's moves and gave them all secondary effects, but this once per battle effect also doubled a Dynamax Pokemon's HP.
What I like about Wolfie is that he uses a lot of his own footage from different events that he's been participating in throughout the years. It really reinforces the fact that he's been around not only for ages, but that he genuinely knows what he's talking about because he's always top cutting or winning these massive tournaments. You truly can just be really good, really, really, really good at the game if you invest the time and effort. A lot of people say that, competitive Pokemon it's nothing but RNG. It's nothing but using the same things in RNG, and there's no way to consistently be very good because it's all up to luck. And I don't think that's the case at all. It's very clearly proven to be wrong.
A benefit that Zacian can effectively ignore. They tried to balance Zacian by preventing it from Dynamaxing, but because Behemoth Blade is so strong, you wouldn't really have wanted to Dynamax it anyway, as it would have resulted in Zacian doing less damage against opposing Dynamax Pokemon. Zacian was the single most used restricted Pokemon in Sword and Shield, appearing on a whopping 66% of teams at the World Championships, despite players only
Only beaten by
Being
Incineroar.
allowed to use 2 restricted Pokemon on a team. Not only was it the most used restricted, it was the second most used Pokemon in the entire tournament, behind only the king himself, Incineroar. For a restricted Pokemon to be used this often, it needs to be unbelievably strong. But Zacian wasn't the only restricted Pokemon added in Sword and Shield.
Oh my god, we spent the first quarter of the video talking about Zacian. I forgot Zamazenta was the point of the video.
These games weren't Sword and Ultra Sword 2. Not that you'd know it from looking at the competitive scene. Nobody used Zamazenta. Well, sorry, that isn't entirely true. One single person used Zamazenta throughout the entirety of Sword and Shield.
Oh, he just loves Zamazenta. Let's go, Alfonso.
Finishing in the top 64 at 2 events.
Nice, well
Apart
done.
from Zamazenta's strongest soldier, nobody else wanted to touch the shield dog. But why? Well, Zacian and Zamazenta are paired legendaries, which means they have some similarities. I'd actually argue that Zacian and Zamazenta are more similar than several other legendary pairs like Ho and Lugia.
Okay, sure. I actually want to see the sales data for Sword and Shield. I want to see what the percentage is Sword sold more than Shields, because it has to be a lot. Surely everybody likes Swords more than Shields. It just seems like going on the offense is just cooler, just more interesting.
Solgaleo and Lunala, and maybe even Pikachu and Eevee. They both need to hold a special item in order to transform into their crowned form, which is the only one worth using. They're
Okay, so it's like a slight
both
nerf.
Steel type. They both get a stat boost when they switch in, and they both have a signature move that deals double damage to Dynamax Pokemon. Also, they're both dogs. So why then did nobody want to use Zamazenta? It's worse than Zacian in every single way. First, the typing. Fighting and Steel is good typing, but it's nowhere near as good as Steel and Fairy. Zamazenta has more weaknesses and fewer resistances and immunities than Zacian. Plus, Fairy is one of the best offensive types in the game because so few Pokemon are actually able to resist it. One of the main
But you could miss play rough, and you can't miss close combat regularly without an accuracy drop. So let's think about that one, shall we?
reasons to use Zamazenta is that its fighting typing is useful to hit opposing Steel and Dark types.
Not Zacian though, because it's neutral.
The thing is, despite not being a fighting type Pokemon, they gave Zacian one of the best fighting type moves in the game.
Sacred Sword?
Sacred Sword. Normally, this would still leave Zamazenta a niche because moves become stronger when they're used by a Pokemon that matches the type of the move.
Ooh, but not if you have basically no attack comparatively.
Except this same type attack bonus is 50%, which happens to be the exact same boost that Zacian's ability gives. In other words, Zacian using a fighting move is going to do more damage than Zamazenta using that same move.
That is really, really embarrassing to have be the case as well. Being outclassed on your stab by something that has got nothing to do with fighting type is just very sad.
Speaking of abilities, Zamazenta's is just the inferior version here too. Dauntless Shield functions just like Intrepid Sword, except instead of giving an attack boost, it grants a defense boost. It's hard to overstate how underwhelming this is. This defense boost is totally worthless when Zamazenta is getting hit with a special attack. Plus, Zamazenta's already high defense stat doesn't really need a boost.
Ooh, that is quite unfortunate too. It's okay, just give it an Assault Vest. Oh wait, you can't because it's already holding the item to turn it into its crown form. Okay, so don't give it an Assault
Think
Vest.
of it this way. Zacian's ability boosts the damage of 100% of its attacks, but Zamazenta's ability only reduces roughly half of all damage that comes in. To add insult to injury, this damage reduction can be achieved in a much easier way, by using the ability Intimidate, which reduces the physical attack stats of both the opponent's Pokemon. So, Zacian being supported by, I don't know, Incineroar, kind of gets the benefit of Dauntless Shield without needing to forfeit its own ability. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, just a reminder to check if you're subscribed. My team and I work
think I am.
really
Yes, I am.
hard on these videos, and we care a lot about them being high quality. So
And they're
if you're
really
enjoying
good.
the content and you think you might want to see more in the future, just do me a favor and double check.
Just go ahead. Just double check that you're subscribed to Wolfie. That's okay. I'll wait. I'm just gonna wait here for a second. Did you check? Okay, I just want to make sure that you're definitely subscribed to Wolfie.
Lots of people think they're subscribed and they actually aren't, and so I feel like I should say something, you know? Anyway, this defense boost also makes Zamazenta's signature move worse, despite being identical to Zacian's in all but name.
Because you don't get the attack buff, so it doesn't actually really do all that much damage. I mean, also, Zamazenta's attack stat is much lower than Zacian's too.
Behemoth Bash is also a 100 power, 100 accuracy steel move that does double damage to Dynamax Pokemon, but with Zamazenta's lower attack stat and
Oh, it's only 130. Well, actually, to be fair, that is still quite high. That's actually much higher than I thought it would be. I thought it would be like 115 or something very low like that. But you know what? 130 attack is still very respectable, although it does not compare to Zacian's functional 225.
Lacking attack boost, it's a lot more underwhelming than its stabby sibling Spectacular Sword Swing. So while competitive players were leaving Zamazenta on the shelf, Zacian would go on.
Which is really sad because Zamazenta, sorry. Oh, no, I didn't mean to see Zacian. Zamazenta's really cute.
To not only dominate competitive play, but win the world championships, as well as most of the other events throughout the year. To be honest, it was clear that things needed to change. Zacian needed to be nerfed, and Zamazenta needed to be buffed.
And what happened? Well, they both got nerfed. Zamazenta also did get nerfed, which is very unfortunate.
But that isn't possible because Zacian and Zamazenta are paired legendaries. Paired legendaries need to be kept equivalent in terms of their base stat totals and the way that any of their signature moves or abilities function. In other words, if Zacian was going to be brought back down to earth, Zamazenta would have to come plummeting down along with it. And that's what happened.
So sad.
Zamazenta paid the price for crimes it didn't commit. And
it's because they're twins. I mean, how can you really tell the difference between a twin? If a twin stabs someone and you have the two of them, how are you really going to know who did it? So you might as well lock them both up. I mean, that's justice, right?
Scarlet and Violet, both Zacian and Zamazenta were nerfed hard. Zacian lost a whopping 20 points out of its attack stat, and that meant Zamazenta had to shed 20 points too. The reasonable thing would have been to take them out of its special attack, a stat that Zamazenta doesn't use, because again, Zamazenta didn't need to be nerfed.
But the ped, so the 170's got to come down, right?
Guess how much special attack Zamazenta lost? A
0.
grand total of 0. Instead,
Yes!
Zamazenta lost 10 attack, 5 defense.
It lost attack? Well, that's ridiculous.
And 5 special defense.
Oh, it didn't even have 170 defense to begin with? Well, that's actually quite weird. I thought it did.
But the stat nerf wasn't enough.
It only has 128 speed too? God, this is weird.
Game Freak wasn't taking any chances with Zacian this time around, now that they didn't need to sell any more copies of Sword. The arguably bigger nerf to Zacian is the change to its ability. While Intrepid Sword used to activate every single time Zacian switched in, it now only activates the first time Zacian hits the field each battle.
Which really is how it should have been balanced to begin with. I mean, it's still ridiculously powerful.
It way more manageable.
And also, you can't use a clear amulets with Zacian, so there's no way to stop Intimidate because it's already holding an item.
Of course, this also meant that Zamazenta's ability had to change too. So, Dauntless Shield received the same nerf, now working only once per battle. These 2 nerfs were given to Zacian, but it was deceived, for another nerf was made. This may come as a shock, but I feel like I need to tell you. In Scarlet and Violet, Dynamax Pokemon were removed from the game.
Since when? Wait, no, I played through the game. There's the big, no, that's not true. There's the Cloth, and there's the Bombardier, and there's the Dondozo. We remember the Dondozo, don't we? There's still Dynamax.
That means that both Zacian and Zamazenta's signature moves went from having arguably the best secondary effect in the game to not having one at all. Oh yeah, one final nerf to these moves to add insult to injury is that the animations are way less cool now than they were in Sword and Shield. A base stat nerf, an ability nerf, and a signature move nerf. Game Freak was done pulling punches.
And then they introduced Miraidon, and we all know how that went. But wait, did they nerf Calyrex? They didn't nerf Calyrex, did they? They just let Calyrex go. They didn't do a single thing about Calyrex. That's ridiculous. I can't believe
and
that.
It worked. As of May 2024, restricted Pokemon are usable in Scarlet and Violet for the first time, and Zacian usage has plummeted. While it's still usable, it's not a top threat.
Okay, I mean, you can Terra Fairy though. That's pretty sick.
It's mostly found success as an anti-meta pick that most players are unprepared for, which is pretty nuts to say about the former king of Sword and Shield, but I don't know, Viva La Vida or whatever. I think probably some of you will get that. Some of you will definitely get that. But what about Zamazenta?
I am not one of those people. I'm sorry.
Who received all of these nerfs too. Surely even its sole believer has given up on it now, right?
No, because it got body press.
Zamazenta has become one of the top threats in the format, and at times has even been the #1 most used restricted Pokemon. How is this possible? Well, I haven't told you about just one little thing yet. In addition to all of the nerfs, Zamazenta also received a singular buff
A little crumb that was bestowed by the gods at Game
Not a
Freak.
base stat increase or an upgrade to its ability. No. Zamazenta got access to a new move. Body Press.
And that's all it needed,
Body
baby.
Press is an 80 base power fighting move, 50% weaker than the more well-known close combat. It can't miss and it has no drawback, but if that were it, it would be unremarkable. What makes Body Press special is that it has a unique
It's not special, it's physical.
property.
Sorry. How do people build Zamazenta? Do they invest mostly in defense? Because you also need to be able to use other moves as well, other than body press, because of the things like ghost types and there's fairy types all over the place as well. So I wonder if they build it with HP and defense in mind, or if they actually invest in the attack stat too. I feel like it'd be hard to build a Zamazenta.
It is the only
Considering there's like four stats it could really use, which is speed, attack, defense, and maybe HP if you want to be really, really bulky.
move in the entire game that deals its damage based off the user's defense stat instead of their attack. Why Zamazenta did not get this move to begin with, I do not know.
Yeah, it is weird because it was introduced in Generation 8, so you'd think that it would, but apparently
But
not.
it truly changed everything for the shield dog. The thing is, Body Press lets a Pokemon use its defense stat offensively, but it also still uses its defense stat, defensively. So the tankier a Pokemon is on the physical side, the more damage it does with Body Press, and the harder it is to get rid of.
They're just taking turns pressing on each
It's like
other.
a buy one, get one free kind of deal. Body Press factors in boost to the defense stat as well. We've actually seen several Pokemon build entire sets around this concept. Pokemon like Hisuian Gudra, Bronzong, and Ferrothorn have all run the combination of Iron Defense and Body Press.
Ferrothorn would be a nightmare if it was in Scarlet and Violet.
With Iron Defense boosting their defense stats to let Body Press do absurd amounts of damage. But Iron Defense isn't the only way to get defense boosts. I can think of a certain ability that activates without needing to spend a turn setting up. So
No way I can too.
Zamazenta's defense boost went from being more or less useless to invaluable overnight. And there's something else to consider too. See, physical attackers typically struggle against the Intimidate ability that we talked about earlier.
It's no problem for a defense boosting or a defense
This
using.
is part of the reason Zacian fell off so hard. While other physical attacking
Can use Clear Amulet.
Pokemon can now use the new Clear Amulet item, which nullifies
Yeah! I actually feel like I'm learning something as I watch more and more of these videos from Wolfie and Moxie and Frieza. I feel like I'm learning about the competitive format all the more, even though I'm generally pretty detached from competitive as far as it goes. I've been to one competitive Pokemon event, which was EUIC in London last year, or not last year, this year, and it was good. I enjoyed it. I didn't play in it because I don't have any kind of competitive knowledge. I also am way too lazy to build a team, so just not going to do that. I mean, breeding, I've got videos to watch, I suppose. God, I should probably do that.
stat drops. Zacian has to hold the rusted sword to be strong. This wasn't such a problem in Sword and Shield where you could just switch out and get the attack boost again later, but it's a real problem now, but not for Zamazenta. There's no defense lowering equivalent of Intimidate, and thank goodness for that. So while it's pretty easy to get rid of Zacian's boost, bringing
I guess there is the Ruin abilities, but that actually doesn't lower the stat. It just makes you take more damage, I believe. So if the Pokemon with the Ruin ability is out, would it affect the amount of damage that you do with Body Press? I actually don't know. Okay, I'm going to try and give this Chin-Pao Sword of Ruin and see if it changes the damage. Oh, no, it doesn't. Body Press still does infinite damage. Oh, that's a +2. It still does it still does infinite damage basically no matter what ability Chin-Pao has. So it doesn't change the damage. Yeah, so if Zamazenta's defense was lowered by Sword of Ruin, it doesn't actually change the amount of damage it'll do. That's actually really interesting.
Zamazenta back down to Earth is way harder. And Zamazenta's defense boost still works against these powerful restricted Pokemon using the Clear Amulet item to stop Intimidate. Another new bonus. And gaining access to Body Press allowed Zamazenta's typing to become fully unlocked. I told you before that Zacian's typing was strictly better than Zamazenta's in almost every way.
And it is because Steel Fairy is just so good.
And that Zacian using the same fighting type move as Zamazenta would be stronger. All of that was only true when Body Press was off the table. Those Iron Defense Body Press users that I mentioned, Bronzong, Ferrothorn, Gudra, you might notice that none of them are fighting types.
Now we get the stab bonus, baby, too. We get a little bit of that.
Remember that same type attack bonus we talked about earlier, where Pokemon using moves that match one of their types get a whopping 50% stronger? Well, Zamazenta is a fighting type Pokemon, and Body Press is a fighting type move. In other words, Zamazenta using body press is not only
wait a minute. Take a look at the damage on this bad
threatening
boy.
because of its high natural defense
Look at
stat.
that go. Damn. And this thing is, trust me, this Necrozma, this Dawn main Necrozma, Dusk main, very
But
strong.
it also gets 50% stronger because of the defense boost from Dauntless Shield, and another 50% stronger because Zamazenta is a fighting type. This makes Zamazenta completely unlike any of the other body press users that we've seen before, because it doesn't have to waste a turn setting up in order to do tons of damage.
But you could also run Iron Defense, get yourself immediately to +3 defense with 128 speed so you can outpace most stuff. Then you tank hits from pretty much every physical attacker in the game. As long as there's no special attackers on the field, you're just running rampant at that point.
But body press does have a weakness. It can't do any damage to ghost type Pokemon.
It's fine. Just use Crunch.
However, the #1 most used ghost type in Scarlet and Violet is Fluttermane, a
Fluttermane.
ghost and fairy type Pokemon.
Oh, that's weak to steel, I see.
And fairy type Pokemon are weak to steel. So Zamazenta comes built in with a one-hit KO on the most common ghost type. Though the steel move it uses actually isn't its signature move, Behemoth Bash.
It's not Behemoth Bash. It's got to be Steel Beam. It's the strongest
Instead,
move.
it's Heavy Slam,
Oh, of course, yes, because it weighs like a gorillion
which
kilograms.
does more damage depending on how much heavier the user is than the target. And Zamazenta is heavy, which probably has something to do.
Actually, to be fair, I thought that Zamazenta would be heavier than that. But now I'm realizing the Fluttermane is literally a ghost and probably doesn't weigh anything. It weighs dust. It weighs air. It weighs nout.
With the giant metal shield it's been lugging around. Beyond just doing damage, Zamazenta also has some other interesting options too. Iron Defense can make it basically invincible on the physical side and boost body press's damage to ungodly levels, whereas Wide Guard provides valuable team-wide support against many of the powerful restricted Pokemon like Calyrex, Terapagos, and Kyogre. Dynamax didn't help Zamazenta.
I forgot Terapagos was the thing, but Terapagos is normal type, isn't it? So it would do super effective damage with body press too.
Much at all, because not only was it incapable of using it, but Behemoth Bash was just so lackluster compared to Behemoth Blade.
Because you don't get that attack buff. I mean, if Behemoth... I don't know why Behemoth Bash doesn't do this. Behemoth Bash should work off of your defense. It's literally using your shield to attack. It's using your defense as offense. Why does it not use your defense stat in the way that body press does? It would just make sense for that to work that way. That would be thematic too.
Terastallization is a different story. Zamazenta is able to use Terastallization defensively.
Yeah.
If you thought getting rid of one of the tankiest restricted Pokemon was difficult before, good luck hitting it after it's gotten rid
Oh, wait, that's Rillaboom. I thought it was the Zamazenta going grass so it wouldn't get
of
spored.
its weaknesses. Zamazenta tends to use Terastallization to gain resistances to key types, like using Terra Dragon to resist fire and water moves, or uses it to get around Amoonguss with Terra Grass, becoming immune to Spore and Rage Powder. And that's not the only new addition in Scarlet and Violet that helped redeem Zamazenta. These games added a new Pokemon with excellent synergy with the dog.
Chip out. Damn it. I was gonna say that. Like, it popped up really quickly, but like, I was totally gonna say that.
Chen Pao. Chen Pao can use its dark typing to hit the ghost types that Zamazenta doesn't appreciate, like Goldengo, Calyrex Shadow, and the classic ghost type, Terra Ghost Incineroar.
The classic. I mean, everybody knows it. Everybody's seen it. We don't really need to discuss it because you already know what's going on there. Calyrex Shadow Rider does seem like a big issue for the Zamazenta sets, though. Like, what are you going to do? Run Crunch? You could Heavy Slam into, I suppose, but Calyrex Shadow Rider is also one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. It's got 150 speed over what Zacian had. It has, I think, 7 million special attack around there. It has Astral Barrage that hits both of the opponents. It can Terra Ghost. It's immune to Fake Out. It's immune to fighting type moves. Like, it's just ridiculous.
More than that, its ability pairs really nicely with Zamazenta. Sword of Ruin lowers the defense stats of all other Pokemon on the field, including Zamazenta. But for some reason, this drop doesn't affect body press's damage. With
There we go. Yeah, we did look this up. We just looked this up and confirmed it.
Under its belt, Zamazenta's body press starts doing unholy amounts of damage. And because Zamazenta's already so tanky, it doesn't mind having its defense lowered slightly. One move and one new buddy might not sound like a massive shakeup, but it changed everything for Zamazenta.
Sometimes it just takes a little tweaks to really shake up a
See,
meta.
Zamazenta plays differently than most of the other restricted Pokemon, who try and overwhelm their opponent with their ridiculous offensive moves. Zamazenta is different. It does still do damage, but rather than wiping the entire board in a single turn, it instead excels at being extremely difficult to get rid of and consistently outputting damage.
Damn, that Ice Punch did negative damage. That was supposed to be super effective. How embarrassing. Doesn't Iron Hands have like 140 attack as well? That's ridiculous. What if it freezes?
Every turn over the entire course of the battle. It's one of the best designed defensive restricted Pokemon that we've ever had. And it helps that in Scarlet and Violet, a lot of the popular Pokemon just can't really do anything to Zamazenta. Incineroar, Rillaboom, and Clefairy are some of the more common support Pokemon, and none of them appreciate fighting Zamazenta. And even Urshifu doesn't really like going up against the dog if it—
Oh my days! Listen, that thing was max health. Urshifu just died. It didn't die. Uraosu. Is that how you say its name? Uraosu? Sorry, I've learned how to read katakana, and I just feel like I need to read everything Japanese that comes across my stupid, dumb, big eyes.
terastallizes into a water resistance. Moreover, fighting has nice offensive coverage right now, hitting most Pokemon in the competitive ecosystem for at least neutral damage. More importantly, Zamazenta also beats nearly every other restricted Pokemon.
Really? In a 1v1 and beats all of them? I feel like it wouldn't beat Kyogre. Oh, I guess you can Terra Grass it though, can't you? Ice Beam? If you have to predict it. Ooh, yeah, that's tough.
At least in a vacuum. The physical attackers can't easily get through the defense boost. Calyrex Ice was looking like the #1 restricted Pokemon until Zamazenta came along.
Yeah, you can't do anything with
Rayquaza
Zamazenta.
have fallen off hard and can't break through the defense boost. And even
I have never seen anyone use Rayquaza. I'm going to be completely honest. I've seen people use Mega Rayquaza, but I've never seen anyone use regular Rayquaza, which is sad because it is one of my favorite legendaries of all time.
Koraidon, who should match up well against Mr. Dog, needs to watch out for a Terra Dragon or support from Pelipper. Kyogre and Calyrex Shadow
Oh yeah, Koraidon needs to watch out for those Pelipers. You know, those Pelipers hanging around. You know, at the start of the game, when you first meet with Koraidon in Pokemon Scarlet, what are you near? You're near a cave. What is just outside that cave? Oh yeah, Pelipers and Wingles galore. No wonder he's so depowered. He's so scared of those little stupid flying rats. God, I hate seagulls. You ever had a seagull steal a chip from me before? God, we should do something about them. We should do something about the seagulls.
both rely heavily on their spread moves, which can be shut down by Wide Guard. And the new restricted Pokemon Terapagos isn't able to terastallize out of its fighting weakness or easily get around Zamazenta's Wide Guard. Somehow, in spite of everything, Zamazenta matches up well against nearly every other restricted Pokemon. And that's probably why at the first US tournament where restricted Pokemon were allowed, Zamazenta made it all the way into the quarterfinals despite not being a popular pick at all.
Good job. Someone spotted the potential of this mon, and they did
This
amazing.
proved that the Pokemon had potential, which is maybe why at a tournament the following week in Europe, Zamazenta was the most used restricted Pokemon on the second day of competition. And
25% is insane. EUE. Is that Chi
even won the entire
It is.
tournament. That's right. Zamazenta went from a Pokemon that most players wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole to the #1 most used restricted Pokemon at a tournament and the champion despite being nerfed into the ground. And all it took
job,
was gaining
Zamazenta.
access to a single unassuming move that it probably should have had all along. Pokemon is an
I wonder how much different it would have been if Zamazenta had body press the entire time. Obviously, Zacian would still be the king of Sword and Shield, but maybe you'd have a little bit more than 1% usage with one guy.
incredibly complex game. And there's so many factors that go into determining whether or not a Pokemon is good that it can make your head spin if you think about it for too long. Zamazenta's story might be one of my personal favorites that I've ever seen in my 13 years competing.
Now, 13 years, crikey, it does make me very happy too. I'm really, really pleased to see Zamazenta doing a little bit more work. I mean, he's just a good little guy. He deserves it. After all this time outside of the limelight, it's about time he had something going for him.
And it's a good reminder that sometimes all a Pokemon needs is that one missing piece. Hey, thanks for watching. If you
You're
like hearing
welcome.
about legendary Pokemon that caught people off guard, you might like this
do.
video about how Miraidon, one of the strongest new legendary Pokemon, was completely underestimated by the vast majority of competitive players, and why that ultimately ended up biting them pretty hard.
Hey, I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it if you go to Wolfie VGC's channel right now and watch that latest video about Miraidon. Or maybe you want to see a tournament video. Or maybe you want to see what the best normal type is. Go and subscribe to Wolfie VGC right now. If you want to, you can also use code Patterrz at Gamerside. subs. Get yourself a nice shirt, gamer sub shirt, get yourself some delicious beverages, caffeine and caffeine free, less than $1 per serving with international shipping. You should definitely check it out. And if you do use code Patterrz, please let me know. I'd love to thank you personally. Anyway, subscribe if you want to see more of my dumb face. See you later. Bye.